Next few days, they just need to take action, and then everyone will be happy.
Il y aura 3 minutes qui va.
There will be 3 minutes left for questions and answers for the honourable member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue after question period.
Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Eglinton Lawrence.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. The contributions of Italian Canadians in building up the foundation of this country are well known and a source of great pride for me as a member of that community, as I hope it is for all members in this House. Tout au long de la 20e siècle.
Throughout the 21st century, Italian immigrants have worked relentlessly in the mines of Northern Ontario, on the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor, and on the railroad. There are many other examples.
Blood, sweat, and toil that was sacrificed. Thousands of immigrants lost their lives while laboring in the most arduous of conditions. Thankfully, the community has come forward to commemorate those who fell. I am proud to announce that a monument honoring the Italian fallen workers will be officially unveiled in my riding at Columbus Centre in Toronto, Ontario on April 28th. 11 columns will bear the names of each fallen worker and memorialize them forever. I would like to acknowledge the efforts of the committee and invite all members in this House to join the Ambassador and Consul General of Italy, along with other representatives, to commemorate the grit, resilience, and hard work of the Italian-Canadian community.
The honourable member for North Okanagan-Shuswap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All small towns have community spirit, but a couple in the North Okanagan deserve special recognition. The first is Falkland, which will be holding the 98th annual Falkland Stampede on the Victoria Day weekend. Being one of the oldest and best rodeos in Canada, only shows part of the spirit of this small town. Falkland is also home to the largest Canadian flag in Western Canada. The flag is visible for over 7 kilometers away, showing Falkland's community and Canadian spirit. The second town is Lumbee, now known as Hockeyville 2016. With over 1.2 million votes, Lumbee outvoted all of competitors to bring home the $100,000 prize. Hockeyville events, including an NHL preseason game, are now being planned throughout the community to celebrate the victory. Falkland and Lumbee, two great small towns with big hearts and great big spirit in the North Okanagan area.
Honourable member for Calgary Skyview.
We live in a great nation where we can all stand in the House to share our own cultural values, religions and beliefs, but still remain united as one country. It was made possible because of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which was signed into law on April 17, 1982 by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The Charter is one of the most enduring legacies of Liberal Party under the Right Honourable Pierre Trudeau. It is the Charter that continues to make our nation the envy of the world. It guarantees Canadians the following, regardless of gender and ethnicity: the right to free speech, the right to vote and serve as members of legislature, the right to life, liberty and security of the person. And Mr. Speaker, it is the spirit of the Charter that has made celebration like Vaisakhi possible in this great nation of ours. Every Canadian should be proud of the Charter because it reminds our children and families that in Canada better is always possible. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Mr. Speaker, April 30th will be the day of commemoration for the boat people. My parents and brothers are boat people who came to Canada, like thousands of others from Vietnam, with hopes and dreams of a better life. I want to celebrate Canada's generosity and remember that refugees and their children contribute so much to our country. They are models of success. And we can think about Kim Thuy, the famous Quebec writer. And she wrote Rue Matois Man and other books. I'm also proud of the people who won prizes in Toronto for exceptional and outstanding work. As the child of refugees, I'm proud of both cultures, Vietnamese and Canadian, and to be able to transmit these maternal traditions to my girl, my daughter, and enjoy the freedoms and liberties of democracy. I'll continue to fight to defend social justice for all Canadians and all refugees. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, World Theatre Day is celebrated on March the 27th around the globe. World Theatre Day is meant to honour and further UNESCO's goal of celebrating the power of theatre as an indispensable bridge builder for international understanding and peace. Theatre promotes and protects cultural diversity and identity throughout the world. Theatre reflects life. It speaks of love, passion, joy, anger, pain, and death. It can elevate us and inform us. In Vancouver, we have 70 vibrant theatre companies, the Arts Club, Bar on the Beach, Carousel, and Pacific Theatres and Freddie Wood at the UBC. We need theatre, Mr. Speaker. We need theatre that challenges us, opens us to diversity, and takes us to places we would never go. I am proud our government is restoring and adding funding to the performing arts across Canada. Let's make every day World Theatre Day. Attend a performance in your community.
Bravo.
The honourable member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for this chance to rise to tell you a tale from Manitoba's blue skies. The Generals of Bentley are my subject today, who went undefeated in Allen Cup play. They faced the best teams from Canada-wide, winning each game, their fans beaming with pride. Stony Creek, Ile de Chêne, and Sunnybrook fell. The tournament hosts Prairie Thunder as well. It was a hard-played final between these last two. An overtime victory secured Bentley's due. 3 times in 8 years they've repeated this feat, and I could not be more proud to be their MP. Yeah. To Heemskirk, the goalie, who stood on his head, to Matt Stefanishin, tournament scoring he led. They all played great to ensure victory that day. Rigby netted that goal we all watched on replay. Thank you, Steinbach, Prairie Thunder, and the Army, our fans, for supporting the Generals, 2016 Allen Cup champs.
The honourable member for Dartmouth-Cole Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honour the fiercest warrior from my hometown, the legendary last mayor of Dartmouth, Gloria McCluskey. My 6 years on City Council would have been far less interesting, Mr. Speaker, if I didn't have the pleasure of being seatmates with Gloria. Gloria entered politics as an alderman for the City of Dartmouth back in '85, and then in '92 she became the last mayor of Dartmouth, and she's represented Dartmouth on HRM Council with passion and loyalty ever since. Known for never giving up and working tirelessly for Dartmouth, Gloria has gone to bat for numerous projects. To Gloria, it never matters how large or small a project is. If it matters to Dartmouth, it matters to her. Mr. Speaker, HRM Council will be far less colourful in a few months as Gloria McCluskey has announced her retirement from politics. On behalf of everyone in Dartmouth, I want to thank Gloria for her dedicated service to our community, and we wish her the best. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for St. John Rothsay.
As a Member of Parliament for a riding with some of the highest poverty rates in Canada, I find our government's focus on innovation and poverty reduction refreshing and exciting. Low-income, single seniors will now receive a 10% increase in the GIS, and now we are introducing the New Horizons for Seniors program. Many of my constituents said our seniors live in poverty, and for that reason, I rise in the House today with particular excitement to stand beside the Minister of Families, Children, and Social Development to endorse funding for the St. John Public Library under the New Horizons for Seniors program. This funding will assist in creating education-based programming for seniors in my riding by having a rider in residence program. This will work towards creating a better standard of living for seniors through engagement, social participation, and inclusion in my great riding of St. John Rothsay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Peace River Westall.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps there was something in the air yesterday. The Minister of Health was in New York championing pot policy, while the Prime Minister's pipeline policy continues to be half-baked. With tens of thousands of unemployed Western Canadians, this government is far too unmotivated towards Energy East and Trans Mountain pipelines at a time when international markets have a huge appetite for Canadian oil. Canadians are wondering, dude, where's my pipeline? If this Prime Minister was serious about supporting Canadian oil, he would seize this budding opportunity and end our addiction to foreign oil. And despite the paranoia, Mr. Speaker, pipelines have been the far safest option to transport oil for 20 years or more. Mr. Speaker, let me be blunt. These families rely on the resource sector are watching their hopes for prosperity go up in smoke. I call on this Prime Minister to work jointly with the provinces to ensure that oil moves to market quickly and safely. Mr. Speaker, this government's priority should be pipes. Pipe!
The honourable member for Guelph.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the Honourable Peter Adams, Member of Parliament for 1993 to 2006, representing the riding of Peterborough, who turned 80 years old on April 17th. Peter represented his constituents well, keeping in touch with residents by regularly jogging through downtown Peterborough, and continues to serve in various capacities today. Peter's had a distinguished career as an academic, an author, school trustee, and MPP. In 2012, he was awarded the Order of Ontario. One of Mr. Adams' most significant contributions in this place was to found the Post-Secondary Education Caucus, through which he showed how backbench MPs can be change agents and to which he continues to provide sage advice. I'm pleased to count Peter as a new friend and mentor. Happy birthday, Peter, and thanks to Jill for sharing him with us.
The honourable member for Dorval-Lachine-LaSalle. Mr. Speaker, this morning, the Governor-General awarded the 2015 Governor-General's Award in commemoration of the Persons case to 5 exceptional Canadians. The Honourable Monique Bégin, respected politician, activist, and academic. Marie-Thérèse Chicha, professor and advocate for sexual equality. Dr. Ruth Elwood Martin, family doctor and advocate for the rights of incarcerated women. Sheila McIntyre, legal activist, scholar, and educator, and the recipient of the Youth Prize, D.M. Dooley, a leader in her community.
1929, women in Canada were declared persons under the law. To commemorate this historic event and to remind Canadians that we must continue pushing for gender equality, these awards are presented each year. Along with all Canadians, I wish to say a heartfelt thank you to these outstanding individuals for helping to advance equality to all Canadians. Thank you.
The honourable member for Abbotsford.
Mr. Speaker, fishing season is here. So the Prime Minister first convinced Canadians to swallow hook, line and sinker his promise to run modest deficits. Then he flip-flopped, announcing huge deficits and breaking his promise to balance the budget. Canada's small businesses, hoping to reel in a tax cut, were betrayed by the Finance Minister, who wormed his way out of keeping that promise. The Justice Minister then took the bait and got snagged on a conflict of interest by attending a fundraiser at which lawyers angled for a trophy catch. The floundering Trade Minister was lured into swallowing $20,000 of taxpayers' money just to appear on the Bill Maher show, and we all know what a flop that was. Then casting her line directly at the Premiers, the Environment Minister failed to land the big one, a national climate change plan. Mr. Speaker, the fishy smell is from the Liberal government which, like a fish out of water, has flipped and flopped on every promise it's made. Canadians can't wait to the end of fishing season.
The honourable member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, on Monday, April 18th, 3 days ago, a major earthquake hit the coastal region of Ecuador. Early yesterday morning, Wednesday, a second earthquake hit the same area, causing further destruction. Over 550 are dead, including 4 Canadians. Thousands are missing, and the numbers, unfortunately, are increasing daily. 3 towns have been almost completely destroyed, and many have been left homeless. Canada stepped up immediately with an initial $1 million humanitarian contribution. The Canadian Disaster Assessment Team has been dispatched to do a critical assessment of the needs on the ground as the events continue to unfold, and additional resources to support embassy and consulate services were also sent. My riding of Davenport is home to many vibrant cultures, including Ecuadorians from the Latin American community. I want to let them know that we are thinking of them, and our hearts go out to friends, colleagues, and family members affected by this devastating earthquake. In the days and weeks ahead, I encourage all of us to be generous as Ecuador calls on the Canadian community for help and support as it heals and rebuilds the towns affected along its beautiful coast. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Hamilton Mountain.
Speaker, next Thursday, April 28th, Canadians will be marking the National Day of Mourning for Workers Killed. injured on the job, and those who have become ill because of their workplace. The National Day of Mourning is not only a time of reflection and remembrance, it also is a day to rededicate ourselves to the goal of keeping workers safe at their work, at their jobs. And Canadian workers die at a rate of 1,000 per year because workplace safety is sacrificed to serve the interests of the bottom line. Often workers are killed because they've been pressured into doing unsafe work. This has to stop. Workers in Canada are actively campaigning to have the Westray Law, passed unanimously by this House over a decade ago, properly enforced so that corporations who kill and injure workers are held criminally accountable. Mr. Speaker, an injury to one is an injury to all. Let's protect workers, enforce the law.
Here, here. The honourable member for Niagara Falls.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my honour today to pay tribute to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II on the occasion of her 90th birthday. I join with all Canadians to express our gratefulness for her selfless dedication in giving her life to service. No one has a better record than Her Majesty. I remember as a teenager when world leaders would come to North America, they normally would frequent New York or Washington, but the Queen always made a point to visit Canada because that was her priority, and I always appreciated that. Her inspiring role during World War II continues today as she emboldens all of us to become better citizens and global neighbors. In her own words, the true measure of our actions is how long the good in them lasts. Well, the good in her own actions will not only last a lifetime, but indeed will be timeless, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud to be one of her loyal subjects and greatly honored to be given this privilege. Happy birthday, Your Majesty, and may God bless.
The Honourable Member for Brassard-Saint-Lambert. Mr. Speaker, I join my colleague in wishing Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II a happy birthday. She's celebrating her 90th today. The first reigning sovereign to have reached that age is in and of itself admirable, but the fact that Her Majesty continues after 64 years on the throne to devote herself entirely to the service of her people deserves all of our recognition and appreciation.
Devoted her entire adult life to service, a word so often scorned and yet so nobly lived by a sovereign who brilliantly reinvented the role to which she was born.
Whatever our beliefs may be, I think we can all stand together to congratulate our Queen, who has lived 90 such successful years in the service of the people of the Commonwealth.
Inspiring life. Happy birthday, Your Majesty. Thank you.
Great to see this nice tone and that we're all in good voice. And that was even in sync that time. Following discussions among representatives of all parties in the House, I understand that there is an agreement to observe a moment of silence to commemorate the National Day of Mourning and to honor the memory of workers killed or injured at work. J'invite les députés à se lever.
I invite members to stand.
Merci. Thank you. Oral questions, questions orales. Honorable chef de l'opposition.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, families relied on the Children's Fitness Tax Credit to help offset the cost of their kids' sports and fitness programs, but unfortunately the Liberals scrapped it. Shame. Now the Prime Minister can use those same families' tax dollars and fly to New York and work out in front of TV cameras while families are struggling to pay for their kids' sports. Instead of focusing on self-promotion, will the Prime Minister focus on promoting children's fitness and reinstate the Child Fitness Tax Credit?
Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, in our budget, we came through with a real commitment to Canadian families. It's going to make a real difference for those families who want to help their children to lead better lives. We move forward on changing our tax system so the wealthiest are not advantaged, and in fact, we help those Canadians who need it most. The imposition of the Canada Child Benefit is going to help 9 out of 10 families with children with $2,300 more on average per year. This will help Canadian families more than anything else, putting more children on sports fields this year. Thank you, Mr.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, millions of parents appreciate the tax credit for children's fitness to help them to pay for registration for soccer, hockey, and football. It's impossible. They can't go to New York City to practice their favorite sports in front of cameras. Instead of self-promotion, why does the Prime Minister promote physical activity among young people by reinstating the tax credit for physical fitness? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, with our budget, we have been clear. It's much better for the middle class. It's much better for Canadian families across this country with the Canada Child Benefit. With this measure, 9 out of 10 families with children will be in a better position this year with, on average, $2,300 for each family. So it's much better for them.
The Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday we introduced a motion to recognize the atrocities that ISIL is committing as a genocide. By rejecting the motion, the Liberals have confirmed to the world their naive idea of the threat of ISIL, and they've let down Syrians and Iraqis who are being slaughtered and tortured and raped. We know that ISIL is trying to wipe out entire cultural and religious communities, including Christians, Yazidis, and Shia Muslims. So for the Liberals to say that this isn't a genocide, Mr. Speaker, is deeply unsettling. So why do the Liberals refuse to call this genocide what it is?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition also rejected our motion, so she should stop to make partisan politics about it. We agree that awful atrocities and horrors committed by ISIL have the hallmarks of genocide. But official recognition of genocide is so serious that it should be only happen following a proper international investigation. That is what we are pushing for, and this is absolutely in line with our allies.
Sometimes there is partisan politics that's made of things around here. But maintenant on va écouter.
Now we're going to listen to the Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the situation is troubling in the aluminum industry in Quebec. Americans are calling for the imposition of a 50% tariff on imported aluminum. Quebec produces 60% of aluminum imported to the United States. And yet, instead of tackling this problem, the Prime Minister is tending to his image in a boxing ring. Can the Prime Minister tell us why he prefers to fight in front of the cameras in a Brooklyn gym instead of fighting for our aluminum industry? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for International Trade. Mr. Speaker, we support the aluminum interest, and we are defending the interests of business in Canada. Imposing restrictions on Canadian exports will not help address this issue of overcapacity. Canada and the United States must address this issue in a strategic manner and together and in the interests of all our workers.
Saint-Jean.
Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the problem is exporting our products to the United States. The other problem is dairy producers in Canada. They have been for a long time calling on the Liberal government to solve the problem of dye-filtered milk. The losses for this industry account for millions of dollars per week, and it is more and more difficult for these people, and it is hard on the processing industry that has no respect for its industry partners. Can the Minister of Agriculture show us that he is taking this problem seriously and that in terms of international trade, and instead of talking, can they actually put in place solutions? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleague for his question. The Minister and myself were dairy farmers ourselves, and my son is the 5th generation on our farm. We are fully aware of what these farms represent for rural regions and their economy. I apologize. We are working with the industry so that we don't have just a temporary solution. We want a sustainable solution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Outremont. I'll give them a solution for the dairy farms. All they have to do is enforce the law, Mr. Speaker. Dominique Anglade, the Quebec Minister of Economy, is asking the member for NDG Westmount to not harm the Quebec economy with Bill C-10. Can the member for NDG Westmount be kind enough to listen to the Quebec government and put a hold on his crazy project to retroactively excuse Air Canada? Will he respect the Quebec economy? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, I think the Quebec Minister did know that we had invoked time allocation yesterday at second reading of this bill, exactly because the NDP wanted to kill the bill with an amendment on Friday. But there is good news, Mr. Speaker. There are still many stages in our parliamentary process. The bill will be submitted to committee, we'll hear from witnesses, and it will come back for a report stage and for third reading. And then we'll start all over again in the Senate. So there are still many phases in this process, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Outremont. He's absolutely right. For once, we did want to kill his bill, and that's what the Quebec government is calling for, Mr. Speaker.
The Liberals blamed the Conservatives for letting the Catholic Church off the hook for millions of dollars in the restitution of residential schools, but it turns out that the minister had 7 days of briefings before she let the church off the hook. Is the minister suggesting that it's not her fault, that she didn't read her briefing books? Is she still going to blame the Conservatives, or is she going to stand in this House and explain why they let the church off the hook?
The Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the headline of the story was wrong and has subsequently been corrected. Let me be clear. The agreement of release was signed October 30th, 5 days before the new government took office. The previous government initiated negotiations last summer, and the previous government agreed to withdraw the protective notice of appeal. The government continues to work with the Catholic entities to urge them to fill their financial commitments to their reconciliation with Aboriginal people in this country. This is not something the Government of Canada can do.
Member for Outremont.
It was actually on November 10th, 6 days after they were sworn in, that they signed those documents, Mr. Speaker. And by the way, if they don't really agree with it, why didn't they just reverse the decision, Mr. Speaker? Should Canada sell weapons to countries that oppress their own citizens, torture or kill their opposition, and treat women as second-class citizens? Well, yesterday we found out from the Member of Parliament for Kenora that human rights don't matter. So here's the question for the minister responsible. Why did he sign this deal with Saudi Arabia when he knows their human rights record?
The Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the leader of the NDP during the campaign said, I quote, "You don't cancel a commercial accord retroactively, it's just not done." So they say something during the election to get the seat, and after they say something after. I think they have a lot to explain, Mr. Speaker.
We're talking about signing an export permit after Saudi Arabia proceeded to a series of executions, including religious leaders, after Saudi Arabia used its weapons in Yemen. That's the context of that minister signing the export permits, Mr. Speaker. They have a real problem. They don't accept that they're the government. They keep looking at the former government. They're in charge. He signed the export permits. When does this government plan to start defending human rights around the world? When, Mr. Speaker?
The honourable member for Cape Breton Council should know that I know his voice, even if he covers his mouth and should restrain himself. The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the leader of the NDP is mad in it because, in fact, he knows that he has a double talk on this issue. And it's what his member have said when she has been elected. Well, I lost the quote. Oh, London Fan Shop. So, what she said is that we would honor the contract. We don't renegade our contracts. It's a signed contract, and we will honor that contract.
Yes! Honourable member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, the Trade Minister claims that her Hollywood adventure was a trip to promote Canada and meet with trading partners. But we know...
Order. Let's have a little quiet. It's hard to hear the member's question. I know you all want to listen to the member's question. Apparently it wasn't the member for Cape Breton Council, he tells me. Member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Funny on that side. Squeaky wheel seems to be getting the grease today. But we know the minister was originally scheduled to appear on a U.S. TV program in October, but she rescheduled her appearance to November after she was sworn into cabinet. Now, the minister wants Canadians to believe that she was there to promote Canada, but Canadians aren't buying her story, even at a cost of $20,000. The real reason she was there was to promote herself. If she was really there for government business, why did Time Warner book her stay?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Conservatives are trying to create a story where there is none. But since the members opposite continue to be so interested in this non-topic, let me remind them that it was their own leader who left taxpayers on the hook for a bill for $50,000, Mr. Speaker, to hire a consultant to try to secure American media interviews. The Conservative accusations about the expenses are false. All the rules were followed, and the details were publicly posted months ago.
The Honourable Member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, several times this week the Trade Minister or her Parliamentary Secretary have risen in this place and told us that it was her department and her department alone that handled all of the arrangements for her Fun in the Sun vanity trip to California. However, documents indicate that it was Time Warner who booked the 5-star Beverly Hills hotel rooms for her and her staffer. So something doesn't add up here. Mr. Speaker, the question is simple. Why should Canadians be paying for her vanity trip to Hollywood?
Hear, hear.
Parliamentary Secretary.
Once again, the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker, are trying to create a story where there is none. Unlike previous Conservatives, the Minister of International Trade has a justly earned international reputation as a journalist and finance writer. In California, she appeared in the media with U.S. Senator Angus King of Maine and California Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom. And there, Mr. Speaker, she proudly defended Canada's leadership on the Syrian refugee crisis. The Conservatives should learn from colleagues like their former Prime Minister that even they sometimes need to appear in the media.
Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday I asked the Trade Minister about her taxpayer-funded trip to L.A. to appear on the HBO show Real Time with Bill Maher. The Parliamentary Secretary claimed the purpose of the trip was to promote Canadian interests with one of our most important trading jurisdictions. Yet, Mr. Speaker, the minister didn't even mention trade or make any reference to Canada's interest during her appearance on the show. The minister's Hollywood meeting had nothing to do with her portfolio or government business. Why did Canadian taxpayers pick up the tab?
President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, our trade minister earned an international reputation as a global thought leader on economic and social issues well before she entered politics. That's why she is given the opportunity to appear before millions of Americans, millions of viewers on these high-profile panels. And it is good for Canada to have a trade minister with that kind of international stature. She should be celebrated for the work she's doing in defending Canadian values and defending Canadian interests.
The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, yelling raises Liberals to their feet. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I asked the President of the Treasury Board why he and other ministers were violating rules obligating them to post their travel expenses by March 31st. Then about an hour later, some of his expenses magically appeared online. A few ministers are still missing, however. Mr. Speaker, when can we expect the rest of the Liberal ministers to obey the law?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, Liberals have led the charge on openness and transparency and proactive disclosure. In fact, it was a Liberal Prime Minister, Paul Martin. That government was the first to proactively disclose cabinet ministers' expenses. It was a Liberal leader, our Prime Minister, in opposition, who led the charge, being the first party in the House of Commons to proactively disclose members of Parliament's expenses, and we disclose our expenses. We will continue to expose our expenses because it is the right thing to do, and Canadians deserve openness and transparency, and our government will continue to deliver that.
The honourable member for Lévis-Lobinière. Mr. Speaker, after having missed the deadline dictated by his own department, the President of the Treasury Board has finally made his travel expenses public. Too bad we can't say the same for some of his colleagues who still have not done so or who have posted incomplete information. Canadians deserve better than this pseudo-transparency. Mr. Speaker, when will we have full proactive disclosure, or will the Liberals only disclose information when they get caught breaking the rules? The Honourable President of the Treasury Board. Mr. Speaker, our government is completely open and transparent. We make our expenses public, and we will continue to do so. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the Minister of Transport said that he had to act fast and therefore impose a gag on C-10. And he said this, because the government of Quebec decided not to litigate Air Canada. But now things are not looking so good for the minister, because the Quebec Minister of the Economy said this morning that the federal government must not harm her negotiations with Air Canada. So he says one thing, but the minister in Quebec says another. I'd like to bring the minister back to earth and ask him, why did he impose time closure? Why is he harming discussions? What does he have to hide? Honourable Minister of Transport. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It allows me to say this a second time. The reason that we invoked time allocation yesterday is very clear, because on Friday, the NDP tried to kill this bill. And in our wonderful democracy, we know full well that there are still many, many stages left before all the C-10 debate process is complete. We're going to pursue with the committee study. We're going to hear witnesses. We'll come back to the House for third reading and report stage. And of course, after that, it will be referred to the Senate. So there are still a great many phases and much time before everyone is heard. The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's hard to understand the Liberal strategy to fight tax evasion, because after the secret agreements that have allowed many millionaires to get off scot-free and luxurious evenings spent with representatives of KPMG, we now learn that the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance, when he headed up Bionest, regularly transferred funds to a partner established in a tax haven. In addition, at the same time, that company was receiving tax credits from the federal government. So can we please learn how much of the how many taxpayers' funds were directed to this corporation in Turks and Caicos? The Honourable Minister of Finance.
I'd like to say that the member for Saint-Maurice-Champlain is a colleague and a friend. There's absolutely nothing that he has done contravening the law from an income tax standpoint. To insinuate otherwise is categorically false. What I can say is the members opposite clearly like our budget so much that they are moving to talk about other things, non-stories, to move us off the topic. The fact is, we're helping Canadians with our budget. We're going after tax evaders, and we're going to continue to do so.
Member for Victoria.
Is this government serious? Is this government serious about tax havens, Mr. Speaker? The Minister of Finance and his parliamentary secretary busy explaining why companies they've left have links to Caribbean tax havens. The Minister of Revenue continues to defend sweetheart deals with millionaire tax cheats and privileged relations with KPMG. As Canadians are sitting down these days and doing their taxes, they're angry about one set of rules for the super rich and another for the rest of us. When will the minister just call an investigation into the KPMG tax evasion scandal?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, to insinuate any sort of wrongdoing on the part of the Parliamentary Secretary of Finance is categorically wrong-headed. What I can say is that our government is absolutely committed to dealing with tax evasion, to dealing with tax avoidance that's inappropriate. At the G20, we were a strong and loud voice for common reporting standards around the world. We're moving forward on the base erosion and profit shifting initiative to come to those deliverables, and we've committed $444 million to the CRA to ensure that we go after people who are evading taxes.
Member for Abbotsford.
Mr. Speaker, earlier this week at committee, I asked the Environment Minister about Canada's competitive advantage in carbon pricing. The only response I could get was that China was considering a plan to price carbon and that this was a game changer. A game changer? So we're left with a minister who turns to China for inspiration on carbon taxes and a prime minister who expresses admiration for the basic dictatorship that is China. So when will the Liberals abandon their plan for a carbon tax grab and focus on supporting Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Environment.
Mr. Speaker, thank you to the honourable member for the question. Canada's government is working actively with the provinces and territories to develop and implement a Canadian plan to reduce emissions and to further the clean growth economy. We welcome the discussion with respect to carbon pricing. Carbon pricing is something that will be part of the outcome of the discussions. And I would say that the honourable member should actually have a conversation with some of the leading Conservative members around the country, including Patrick Brown, the leader of the Ontario Conservative Party, Preston Manning, and Mark Cameron, who was an advisor to his former Prime Minister.
Honourable member for Abbotsford.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's not only about a carbon tax grab. Earlier this week, in question period, the Minister of Environment was asked when she would make a decision on the $36 billion Pacific Northwest LNG project in BC. She flippantly said, "We will make a decision when we're ready to make a decision." When will the minister abandon her plan for a harmful carbon tax grab, get out of the way and allow Canada's resources to be shipped to market?
Parliamentary Secretary for Environment.
Mr. Speaker, we've been very clear that we will be working to ensure that the economy and the environment go hand in hand. We've also been very clear that we are going to base decisions on science and evidence. With respect to Pacific Northwest, as I've mentioned to my honourable colleague in the past, the proponent provided new information, substantive new information, during the public comment period, some of which had the potential to have impact on the second largest salmon run in British Columbia. We are going through the process of assessing that information to ensure that we understand the environmental impacts. That is the responsible thing to do. That is what we plan to do.
Report McMurray, Cold Lake.
Mr. Speaker, mining is the biggest provider of jobs in the North. The recent downturn in the natural resource sector had disastrous effects on each of the territories. Unemployment is now 6.9% in the Yukon, 9.4% in the Northwest Territories, and a staggering 16.2% in Nunavut. A carbon tax will only make things worse. When will the Liberals realize that a carbon tax will only weaken the northern economy and raise unemployment?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Environment.
Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned in an earlier reply, we are working actively with all of the provinces and territories across the country to develop a pan-Canadian approach to address carbon emissions and to actually promote a clean growth economy. We intend to work constructively with all provinces and territories to ensure that we have a plan that has the support of all parts of the country, but will allow us to ensure that we are addressing what is a critical international issue.
For Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
Mr. Speaker, Northerners want to work and support their families. Instead of embracing the resource industry, the Liberals have taken every opportunity to give it the cold shoulder.
Shameful.
They are making it more difficult for the natural resource industry in the North by introducing a carbon tax that will raise the cost on everything. Why are the Liberals kicking the Northerners down when the economy is down when it's already down?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to actually refer my honourable colleague to a number of elements in the budget which focus on actually innovation and driving clean technology into sectors such as the mining industry to enable the mining industry to become more carbon friendly but also more productive and more efficient. I would also note that people like Pierre Gratton, who is the CEO of the Mining Industry of Canada, last week came out and actively supported carbon pricing as part of the overall solution. And in fact, people in industries from oil and gas to mining to other industrial sectors have joined the modern age and understand that carbon pricing is part of what we must do in order to meet carbon emission targets and to ensure that we have a clean growth economy in the future.
Member for Churchill-Coquitlam-Newcastle.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives disrespected Parliament through their use of omnibus bills, and the Liberals rightly joined New Democrats to decry them. But yesterday, the Liberals tabled an omnibus budget bill of their own. The bill runs more than 170 pages and includes a bill that's already before this House. It also contains the Liberals' inadequate EI changes that will leave most of the Canadians out. Are the Liberals really using omnibus bills like the Conservatives did to avoid proper scrutiny from Parliament?
Now the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, our Budget Implementation Act is absolutely not an omnibus bill. Every measure in the Budget Implementation Act is, in fact, related to our budget. Unlike previous omnibus bills from the members opposite, who put things like the repeal of the Kyoto Implementation Act in 2012 or gutted the environmental assessment in 2010, we will continue on our message that our Budget Implementation Act is about budget measures and budget measures only.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nevet. Mr. Speaker, the more things change, the more they stay the same. The Conservatives put a lot of measures in their bills, and these Liberals are doing the same thing. Retroactive changes, the Conservatives did it, and the Liberals are as well. And there is an entire bill that is inserted in the budget bill that's already before the House. Is this the real change? So I think they should show transparency and divide the bill so that it can be adequately studied in committee. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Again, I'd like to be clear. Our Budget Implementation Act is, in fact, exactly that. It's a Budget Implementation Act that includes budget measures and budget measures only. It's an act that shows Canadians in an open and transparent way the way that we're going to make a real difference in their lives, both today and tomorrow.
The Honourable Member for Ville-Marie, le Sud-Ouest, Île-des-Sœurs. Mr. Speaker, last Sunday, Ecuador suffered the worst earthquake in 40 years. There were hundreds of victims, including 4 Canadians. Moreover, tens of thousands of people there are in a desperate humanitarian situation. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Defence inform the House of what action can be taken to help Ecuadorians recover from this disaster?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for National Defence.
I'd like to thank the Honourable Member from Ville-Marie, le Sud-Ouest, Île-des-Sœurs, for his question and the sharing of his deep concern, along with, I'm assuming, everyone else in the House on Ecuador's disaster. The Government of Canada immediately responded with $1.1 million emergency relief assistance. We now have a team down in Ecuador doing an assessment as to what further help can be made in order to make recommendations to the government, including the possible deployment of the DART team. So I thank again the honourable member for his concern, and indeed the concern of all members in that.
For Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to equipping our troops, the Liberals are deliberately misleading Canadians. The budget says funding that is not yet allocated to specific projects can be moved forward to future years, but the Liberals are making a $3.7 billion cut to the defence budget. They're taking hundreds of millions of dollars from important military projects that are already underway. So who is misleading Canadians? Is it the Minister of Finance or is it the Minister of National Defence?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
It's another day, Mr. Speaker, and it's another Conservative question on procurement. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives showed no leadership in the procurement file. And in fact, ironically, they now show a love for the Parliamentary Budget Officer. I remind them of the report with respect to the F-35 and see whether, in fact, they still appreciate the abuse of the Parliamentary Budget Officer.
Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, in question period on March 24th, the Minister of Defence said that he would defer spending until it was time for major procurement projects. We know now that that statement was false. Hundreds of millions of dollars are being held back for projects to modernize our frigates, replace our fighter jets, and increase our research and our search and rescue capacity. So will he apologize for misleading Canadians?
Mr. Speaker, major funding has been set aside for future years in order to address the continuous mismatch left behind to us by the previous government. We are trying to match the fiscal cycle and the procurement cycle. And accordingly, as procurement comes forward, our funds will match those procurements. There has been no cutback in the procurement funding.
For Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Mr. Speaker, back to the question of genocide. The Parliament of the UK, the US Congress, Secretary of State Kerry, all have condemned the ISIS killings of Yazidis, of Muslims, of Christian minorities as genocide. This government, your government, had the chance to do the same thing in this House yesterday. You refused. You hid behind.
Order. The member knows that we don't use the word you unless you're referring to the Speaker. I don't think he means to refer to the Speaker. I hope not. So perhaps you can rephrase his question and complete it and get to the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government had a chance to do the same thing in this House yesterday. It refused. It hid behind weasel words. So my question to the government is this. Why do they shamefully put Canada in outside the consensus view of our allies, turn a blind eye to reality? Why don't they come to their senses and realize exactly what's going on over there, which is, in fact, genocide?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, this is what the Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs of the UK, April 20th, said. Genocide is a matter of legal rather than political opinion. We as the government are not the prosecutor, the judge, or the jury. It is essential that these decisions are based on credible judicial process. Right now, our priority is to prevent atrocities from taking place, and that is what we are playing a leading role in the global coalition against Daesh. Replace UK by Canada, and it is very exactly what I have to say, Mr. Speaker.
Bravo. For Thornhill.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if all of the atrocities, war crimes, and crimes against humanity perpetrated by ISIS is not genocide, then what is it? We know, Mr. Speaker, that the UN Security Council is clearly incapable of instructing the International Criminal Court to act. But Canada should not hide behind international legal dysfunction. Mr. Speaker, when will the Liberals fulfill their moral obligation to call this what it is, genocide?
The Minister of Foreign Affairs.
I just want to inform my colleague that indeed the government of Canada is asking for this international investigation on the atrocities, the horrors committed by Daesh, and to be sure that they will be prosecuted and also to investigate if it is a genocide. We are pushing for that, we are asking for that, because they are all the hallmarks of a genocide, and it's why this recognition should be done properly, internationally. There is nothing more important than to recognize a genocide by the proper process, Mr. Speaker.
Bravo! Member for Berthier-Maskinongé. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, hundreds of dairy producers are in Ottawa, people from Montérégie, from Lanaudière and other regions, to demand that the government keep its word and, once and for all, solve the problem of diet-filtered milk. The longer the government waits, the more our regional economies suffer. Producers have been asking for months for action, and the NDP is with them. But the government continues to drag its feet and just use rhetoric and promises that don't add up to anything. Will the Liberals?
Honorable Secrétaire parlementaire pour l'agriculture.
The honourable member. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for introducing the motion in the House today that we are debating. We inherited this problem from the previous government, which brought in new standards but did not enforce them. We are consulting the industry and working with them to find long-term solutions.
Mr. Speaker, after Volkswagen was caught illegally falsifying emission tests and lying about the performance of their vehicles, U.S. regulators, senators, and Congress wasted no time taking them to task. Reports today say the case in the U.S. will be settled with fines, recalls, buybacks, and cash for consumers. But Canada has no deal, as per usual. Even though tens of thousands of these vehicles and cars are in our driveways, highways, and roads, why are Canadian consumers once again condemned to second-class citizens and the doormats of recall?
The Minister of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I share the member's concern for the safety of our roads. In fact, this past week we announced and told Fiat Chrysler that we considered that 4 of their models were dangerous, had defects in it, and we've gone forward. This is one example. We've done many other examples. We believe that it's important for Canadians to know when there are defects in different models of car, and we will continue to do that.
Member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, it's widely known that tobacco products are deadly, and for decades, Health Canada has called for stricter policies against smoking. Marijuana has the same carcinogenic potential to cause harm to the body. Mr. Speaker, how can the Minister of Health, the minister responsible for promoting good health to Canadians, throw out decades of scientific research by Health Canada and promote recreational use of marijuana?
Mr. Speaker, I had the honour yesterday of speaking at the United Nations General Assembly Special Session on Drugs. I used that opportunity to talk about Canada's drug policy, which is grounded in scientific evidence, which employs a collaborative, compassionate, and comprehensive approach to drug policy. We are concerned about access to marijuana for young people. Therefore, we are going to be introducing a new regulatory regime which will keep our children safe, free from the potential harms of marijuana, and keep the profits out of the hands of criminals.
The honourable member for Richmond, Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, like many people, I am disappointed that the government chose New York to announce its plan to legalize marijuana instead of doing it here in the House in front of the representatives that Canadians have elected. There are a number of questions that haven't been answered. Can the Minister of Public Safety tell us what he will do to keep drugs away from children? And how does he intend to equip police officers to be able to stop drug-impaired drivers?
Public safety.
Mr. Speaker, the Public Safety Department is working very closely with the Justice Department and the Health Department to produce a regime for Canada in respect of marijuana that will, in fact, do a far better job in keeping our kids safe, keeping this product out of the hands of children and young people, and stopping the flow of illegal money to illegal gangs and organized crime. The regime in place today has failed miserably, and perpetuating the status quo is absolutely the wrong thing to do.
Member for Lethbridge.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, science has shown that marijuana is linked to serious health concerns, both mentally and physically. especially to our young people under the age of 25. Yet the Prime Minister still insists on pushing forward marijuana legalization. Mr. Speaker, would the Liberals admit to us that marijuana is in fact a causal factor for these illnesses and that their policies will not protect the Canadian children that we love?
Minister of Health.
The member opposite may be aware of the troubling statistics that show up to a quarter of teenagers are in fact currently using marijuana. This is a troubling fact. As my colleague, the Minister of Public Safety, has already indicated, the current approach to marijuana is not working. Because of the potential risks, our government is introducing new legislation which will legalize marijuana, which will regulate it and will restrict access to keep Canadians safe and to keep them healthy.
For Vaughan Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, in my riding of Vaughan Woodbridge, tourism is an essential part of the local economy. With sites like Canada's Wonderland, the Ontario Soccer Centre, Manyata Winery, the National Golf Club of Canada, and our unique conservation areas, tourists from America and around the world have plenty of attractions to choose from. Would the Minister of Small Business and Tourism tell the House what the government is doing to encourage more American tourists to visit Canadian destinations? Thank you, Mr.
Speaker, and I'd like to thank the honourable member for his hard work, especially for his constituents, and also for highlighting the fact that the tourism industry benefits each and every one of our communities and our local economies. Each of us in the House, regardless of party, has something in our communities worth showing off. That's why Budget 2016 provides an additional $50 million to Destination Canada to promote Canadian brand in the U.S. and other key markets. This is a $90 billion industry, and the government's investment in the tourism industry will support small business, tourism operators, and help grow the economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Calgary Forest Lawn.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker.
More than 500 people killed by the devastating earthquake in Ecuador. Hundreds are missing, and thousands need emergency assistance now. Conservatives acquired the C-17 strategic airlift aircraft to enable the disaster response team to respond to disasters around the world. Ecuador is calling for more assistance from the international community, Mr. Speaker. Instead of using the aid money to buy votes at the UN, why doesn't the Liberals rise to the occasion and help the people of Ecuador by increasing Canada's commitment now?
Honourable Minister, Development International.
The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have already provided over $1 million for immediate humanitarian aid after this earthquake, and we will be continuing to help the families who had victims there. We have 3 members from Foreign Affairs and from Defense. We will certainly listen to their recommendations.
Be having problems delivering on their promises to Syrian refugees. Some refugee families in Saskatoon waited nearly 3 weeks without money for food or rent. They had to rely on charity just to feed their families and to avoid being evicted. They said, and I quote, "We are frustrated, worried, embarrassed, and feel like we have to beg to survive. This is not acceptable." How many other families are in this situation, and what action will the minister take to ensure this doesn't happen to anyone else?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for her question. As I have said many times, an operation of this kind is never perfect. There are always bumps along the road. There are always problems of various kinds. But overall, I am satisfied, and I just heard today 90% of the refugees now have permanent housing. And I wish those individuals to whom the member referred great success, but I am pleased to say that overall, thanks to the generosity of so many Canadians, this operation is going well.
The honourable member for St. John South Mount Pearl.
Mr. Speaker, the people of Newfoundland and Labrador have been hit hard by the global downturn in oil prices, as reflected in the province's recent budget. I'm hearing time and again from my constituents in St. John South Mount Pearl that middle-class families are feeling squeezed. They're worried about what the future holds for them and what it holds for their neighbors. Will the Minister of Finance please share with this House the work that he is doing to help the people of Newfoundland and Labrador?
Well, Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, our government stands firmly with the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. I was pleased that we were able to deliver a $32 million stabilized payment to people in that province. More importantly, our Canada Child Benefit, our tax cuts, and our increase to the Guaranteed Income Supplement are going to help people in Newfoundland and Labrador with more money in their pocket. Moving forward, our new Canada Building Fund will be more rapid and flexible in delivering infrastructure projects to the people in Newfoundland and Labrador, helping that province in the future.
Banff Airdrie.
Mr. Speaker, when you change the basic rules of democracy, everyone should get a vote. But the Prime Minister seems to think that only those who agree with him should get a say. He clearly opposes directly consulting Canadians through a referendum on fundamental changes to how we vote. He told students at the U of Ottawa that, and I quote, "the fact is that referendums are a pretty good way of not getting any electoral reform." So has the Prime Minister closed the door on a referendum because he thinks the only opinion that matters is his?
Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, unlike the previous government, we intend to use evidence and a complete consultation process with Canadians across this great nation so that when we propose changes in this House, we bring our democratic institutions in.
No. We're going to have some order, please. We're going to hear the answer from the Minister for Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, we will base our decisions on evidence and a complete conversation, an inclusive and meaningful conversation with Canadians across this great nation so that we can bring our democratic institutions into the 21st century.
The Honourable Member for Bécancour, Nicolet Sorel. Mr. Speaker, this morning, even the Quebec government has asked the Minister of Transport to slow down with his unacceptable Bill C-10. The minister has been crowing for weeks about the agreement between Quebec and Bombardier and the creation of centres of excellence, but it's preparing to sabotage this agreement and cause even more job losses in the riding of his colleague in Saint-Laurent. Does the minister realize that the closure on debate is not only shameful but also risks the future of Quebec's aerospace industry?
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
The Honourable Minister. Well, I have said again and again that we brought in time allocation specifically because the NDP wanted to kill the bill last Friday. In our federal parliament, and my colleagues should know this, there are a number of legislative steps. There will be committee consideration. There will be a number of witnesses that will appear to speak to the bill. Then there is report stage and third reading, then the Senate. So there's still a lot of time for people to express their views on the bill. Honourable Member for Joliette. This was an immoral closure on an immoral bill. The Quebec government never withdrew its legal case against Air Canada. It just suspended it to be able to negotiate to save Bombardier, which is being abandoned by the government, it seems. So why does the federal government want to take away Quebec's power to negotiate? The Honourable Minister of Transport, as you know, we want to amend the Air Canada Public Participation Act because the Quebec and Manitoba governments dropped their legal cases against Air Canada. We want to clarify the legislation, and Air Canada does have to provide maintenance jobs in Ontario, Manitoba, and Quebec.
I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of the recipients of the 2015 Governor-General's Awards in commemoration of the Persons case. Madame Monique Bégin, Madame Marie-Thérèse Chicha, Mrs. Madame Marie-Thérèse Chicha, Mrs. D. Dooley, Mrs. Ruth Elwood Martin, and Mrs. Sheila McIntyre. I believe the Honourable Leader of the Opposition has a point of order arising out of question period.
Speaker, during question period, the member for LaSalle Lamar, who's the Parliamentary Secretary for International Trade, mentioned that our leader had spent funds on an international consultant on U.S. media. So what I would like to say, Mr. Speaker, last time I checked, I am the leader. I did not do this. I know I'm new, but the member has known me since he was elected. If he could please retract and withdraw that comment.
Well, it is debate. I see that. I don't see the member rising. Oh, yeah, I do see the member, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade, rising to respond.
I said the former leader of the opposition.
No. Well, at any rate, I think the leader of the opposition has clarified that, and we'll leave it at there.
Now, point of order.
Order.
Point of order. The Honourable Member for Outremont. Mr. Speaker, I am the former Leader of the Opposition, and I want to assure you that I have nothing to do with what was said here. Well then, that's still a matter of debate, but I'm sure that the House appreciates all this clarification.
Time, of course, for the